It was an incident that shot the Wa municipality of the Upper West region to media prominence. A sexual encounter by two lovebirds became the trigger for what many have described as plain abuse of the rights of the two in the manner they were publicly flogged on the orders of the Warner's palace.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
The act of filming and the subsequent leaking of a video has been roundly condemned by the locals, who believe the two individuals deserved what they got for flouting a local bylaw put in place by the Wala Traditional Council to check immorality.
The rate at which these sex tapes are being leaked in the municipality is very bad, and it's not in good taste at all.
But in the last few days, there have been questions over the propriety of such local laws and their place in the Ghanaian constitution. For human rights groups and advocates, the May 31 flogging of the two is a gross violation of their dignity. The police, which moved in to arrest some individuals in connection with the incident, have so far faced significant pushback, and so has the media.
They besieged the police station, demanding the release of the suspects. They were throwing stones, all sorts of missiles, but notwithstanding, the police managed to weather the storm.
Call it tradition versus the law, or even the pursuit of morality by a community, whichever way it deems fit, regardless of whose ox is God. The Wa sex tape and flogging conundrum is a test case of where the rule of law leaves the victims, the perpetrators, the collaborators, the enforcers of a local law, and those merely doing their job as journalists by covering them all. It's been several days after a video captured two young persons at the mercy of a bunch of chanting residents being flogged at the palace of the paramount chief of the Wala traditional area went viral on social media. The two, believed to be lovebirds, could be seen wincing and moaning in pain at each of at least 20 strokes being served as punishment per a local law put in place in the Wa municipality sometime in July 2021 by the Wala Traditional Council, ostensibly to check immorality and sexual misconduct.
In order to curb these activities in the municipality, the overlord of the Wala traditional area last year instituted some bylaws to bring to an end of these activities, but you still find some of these things still happening. For me personally, I think it's in order and it's in the right direction.
Even though the scope of a said bylaw in the area was unclear, it prescribed what the locals describe as punishment according to tradition. Member of Parliament for the Wa Central constituency, Dr. Rashid Pelpo, who is son of the overlord of the Wala traditional area, outlines what the said law was to do.
These things kept repeating, and you have young people, after they record their own sexual activity, they put it in the open. Then it came to the point that the leadership had to meet and to announce to the public that it was unacceptable.
Which leadership?
The Wa Traditional Council with some Islamic leaders. We just said that, look, our culture does not allow what happens. Traditional punishment is not defined specifically. It depends on what you have done and what they will decide on you. They can ask you to bring a cow, they can ask you to bring a sheep, they can ask you to do something, They can ask you to pay money and do all kinds of things depending on the level of your crime.
For the residents, the issue of sexual misconduct is grave and deserves commensurate punishment, especially when the act gets leaked onto social media. And so the latest video leak involving the two was enough basis.
I think once there's a crime, there should be a form of punishment to curb the menace. But going forward, the manner at which the punishment was taken, perhaps is what I personally do object to, perhaps tying them up, then videoing while punishing them. But perhaps I don't personally fall punishing these offenders. There's something bad about it.
But for human rights advocates and rule of law promoters, the act was unacceptable and it inflicted wounds on the two individuals involved in the sex tape controversy. Executive Director for advocacy group Song Taba, thus Lamnatu Adam, was one of the earliest voices to speak.
These are people that need support, and they need support in terms of even that for psychological counseling, because I can assure you that such a girl or a boy can easily, his or her right can easily be violated again, because the society has made us to think that sex is bad. Yes, leaking sex is bad. Sex before marriage is bad. But I'm telling you that if they had done a quick scan, an audit of all the people who were there flogging and all the people who were there, a quick scan on their phones, they would have seen more damning things in their phones. Is it because theirs is been leaked? We have had very high personnel in our communities committing more serious crimes, yet this has not happened to them. We have had Islamic and Christian clerics who have, slept with minors, who have impregnated minors. We have traditional authorities or elders who have done worse things. Has this happened to them? All the perpetrators of this should be arrested. And all of the people we have seen flogging should also be arrested.
Amnesty International Ghana describes the public flogging as demeaning of the dignity of the two. In a statement, the Ghana Office of International Non-Governmental Organization focused on human rights condemned it. It further called on the Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Ekufu Dampare, to trace, arrest, and prosecute all persons involved in subjecting the two lovebirds to the public torture. The statement concluded the development, which has since assumed national character, is mob injustice and amounts to physical assault on the two youngsters. For former police officer and executive secretary to a former IGP, Peter Tobu, also an MP for Wa West, he believes any law anywhere in the country must align with the bigger laws of a state which ultimately protects life and property.
This is a bigger conversation that we have to look at as a nation. Where the power of the state is seen to be weak and society is suffering from some kind of dubious behavior or some kind of behavior that is unacceptable to the community in which we find ourselves, some local people, the traditional rulers, have the authority to stem the tide, to prevent their societies from collapsing completely. If you depend completely on government, and you pray that government should be competent enough to ensure that things are happening right, if government is not strong enough, and you sit down as a local chief to allow your system to collapse, listen, chieftaincy right now is all about development. It's not all about being the Lord. So whatever the chief does, of course, should be in line with the 1992 Constitution of Ghana. That is the supreme law. Whatever the chief does should not be in violation of the Constitution. But whatever all of us should be doing is to ensure that our society is more respected. That the law, we made the law, and the law is supposed to protect us, but we are not supposed to be slaves to the law.
At the Warner's Palace, there was pressure for the palace to speak about the incident which took place in their forecourts. Secretary to the Warner, Jinping Na Kadiri Ibrahim, attempted an explanation.
I quickly had to make calls to the palace to find out what occasioned the incident. I was told that they were there. Some elders of the palace were those I spoke to. That they were there when some youth came in with these two victims and alleged that there were people who had engaged in sexual misconduct. That was the reality. Then whoever also sanctioned the action that took place here, what happened to them in terms of the flogging or shaming is another aspect of the question, whether that was right or wrong. But on the whole, I would want to think that we as youth growing up in society should learn to live reasonable and responsible lifestyles. The unfortunate aspect of the whole show is that when it took place, His Majesty the Overlord Wana was not around. As his personal secretary, I was also not around. And so, up till now, we are unable to still speak to what could have led to the decision to flog them as they did.
This angered the residents and youth of the area specifically, who had been clear in their mind. They carried out the flogging of the two lovebirds in the palace with the blessing of their overlord.
It's so astonishing. Perhaps someone seeing from afar, where was this particular act taken? It was at the premises of the Wana's palace. So it will be so astonishing to hear they are distancing themselves from it. And in the video in circulation, we've actually seen sub-chiefs around. And perhaps we know when the overlord is not around or his secretary. But at least when people come in, at least there's a delegation that stands in for the chief. So personally, I think it's so surprising because it is a public knowledge that this particular menace over in 2022 alone, we have recorded not less than 12 leaked sex tapes, and this has called for a lot of concerns, and which have even been forwarded to the overlord of the Wala Traditional Council on different occasions, including the LGBTQ, of which the ban was also placed. So to me, I'm so surprised the office of the overlord of the Wala Traditional Council are actually distancing themselves from this particular case.
Barely 24 hours later, the overlord of the Wala Traditional Council, Naf Husseini Saidu Pelpo IV, is believed to have made a U-turn from the earlier position of his secretary. According to a Ghana news agency report, the chief confirmed the flogging was under his instructions. The GNA report also noted the activity forms part of the measures the council, together with opinion leaders in the municipality, put in place to fight immoral and deviant behavior among the youth. According to the GNA, the WANA said the regulations were aimed at instilling decency, morality, and peace in the municipality to attract investors for the teeming unemployed youth. The palace had come under pressure over the contradicting positions on the matter of flogging the two individuals. There are reports the secretary to the WANA came under some attack with his home partly destroyed. The residents were simply angry. On June 1, 3 persons, including 2 sub-chiefs of the Wala Traditional Council, were arrested in connection with the WASEX video and the subsequent public flogging of a girl and the boy in the video. The 2 sub-chiefs are alleged to have given consent for the public flogging incident. The 3, Sidiki Usman, 62, Bushran Kigal, a 34-year-old mobile phone repairer, and Isahaku Mahama, a 70-year-old farmer, and the Dohona. Police say the 3 suspects were part of the decision makers when the mob arrived at the palace that day to mete out the corporal punishment to the 2. Angry residents, unhappy with the arrest of the 3, went on rampage, seized the police station, and caused some damage to property.
We don't allow pornographies. No more police. No more police.
We demanded the release of the 3 individuals who were arrested by the police. Upper West Regional Police Commander DCOP Peter Ndekugri gave an account of what happened.
They besieged the police station, demanding the release of the suspects, and I was called upon. So I was the first officer to arrive at the scene. And I quickly called all my other officers, and they came with all the men. And they were throwing stones, all sort of missiles. But notwithstanding, the police managed to weather the storm and went all round to arrest about 18 to 20 of them, and they are currently in our custody. They will be put before court. No casualty recorded, no injury. The only thing we recorded is that damaging of public property, and that is the street lights, which they pulled one down and broke into pieces. And that is of great concern to the people of this nation.
The youth claim you could not control them. Because of that, you call for reinforcement.
There was no reinforcement. Reinforcement from where? It was only police. Not even a single military man was here. There was no reinforcement. They were all my personnel, drawn from all the units.
As the tensions continued, some more persons were arrested. In all, 25 persons were picked up and have been put before court. In all the conversations around the sex tape and the flogging incident, the two victims had been crowded out. Nothing had been heard from them, raising questions over their physical and mental state and the injuries they sustained during the humiliating assault. I have traveled to the Upper West Regional Capital, Awa, in search of the victims. The young lady in the video, Meira, not her real name, had not been to her workplace at the WA station since the incident.
Media mi wa si ase wonu so wa soro ho oni ma mi bi na ya djuma ho media mi ni asam bia wonti bi wa ba djuma bi ntimi ho.
Few meters away from the station at a beverages sales point is where the young man in the sex tape league, Adnan, not his real name, works. The shop was shut on our visit, but residents here say the beverage store is a family business.
Ever since the incident happened, I haven't seen him again around, and the shop has always been opened, except on Sundays, like today, they don't work. But ever since the case, he hasn't come to the shop again.
Those here at the station also believe the two lovebirds should be sanctioned for recording their sexual encounter, which found its way onto social media.
Yala ammo ngay mum po man sa min tijabi dogar bala tay man so he na ngana kayal na ena kan man tala venka anatana ala malan e berbui.
Admonish other people, particularly the youth, to be very circumspect with their activities and desist from the bad aspect of social media. He said both Christianity and Islamic religion frown against what happened between them.
There have been issues of cybersecurity and publication of nude material and the implication of same that have emerged in the last few days. Some residents believe the two lovebirds conspired to leak the video, while others say it may have found its way onto social media by mistake. Ghana's Cybersecurity Act 2020 Act 1038 prohibits non-consensual sharing of intimate images. Act 67(1) specifies a person shall not, with the intent to cause serious emotional distress, intentionally distribute the intimate image or prohibited visual recording of another identifiable person. 2. An offender is liable to a term of imprisonment not less than 1 year and not more than 3 years. 3. Serious emotional distress includes any intentional conduct that results in mental reactions such as fight, nervousness, grief, anxiety, worry, shock, humiliation, and indignity, as well as physical pain. Threat to distribute prohibited intimate image or visual recording. 68. A person shall not threaten another person to distribute a prohibited intimate image or visual recording of that person in a way that would cause the other person. An offender is liable to imprisonment of not less than 1 year and not more than 3 years. Private legal practitioner Martin Kwebu highlights the new cybersecurity law which could cage the two lovebirds if it is proven they were responsible for the publication of a sexual material.
So generally, under Section 280 of Criminal Offences Act, usage conduct amounts to a misdemeanor. And in Ghana, under our law, when we say something is a misdemeanor, the punishment ranges from a fine, okay, up to 3 years imprisonment. That's the old law. When I say old law, it's not like it's a repeal. It's also still part of our law. That's under Act 29. The new hard one, you hear it is in the Cyber Security Act 2020, Act 1038. Under that one, the minimum sentence is 10 years and the maximum is 20. So meaning that if you are the perpetrator is not lucky and he's charged under the new one, then the minimum, the judge will not even write 9 years, cannot write 9.5 years, but minimum 10 years.
After several hours and contacts and running around in the municipality, we managed to convince the lady victim, Meira, to meet at a location far from her hideout.
We have managed to, with the help of some individuals, find her in her hideout, and we are going to be engaging her to understand exactly what's going through her mind, how she has survived the day since the video leaked, and what the way forward is for her, and all of the talk that has surrounded this particular incident.
I was picked up and beaten by some young guys until we got to the palace, where I was flogged 20 times. I was severely injured and left alone. I have to go to the hospital with a friend who bore the cost of treatment, which is between 500 and 600 cedis, and I will repay later.
Operation, so being affected.
But in operation before bang they bang operating.
So more na about this.
Okay. They ever operated her? I don't know whether it's CS level.
I don't know.
It's the same. So because of the previous CS they did on her, coupled with the lashing, so she's experiencing pains along the abdomen.
So the CS, does that mean she has a child?
Yeah. It's a baby level. Yes, she has.
I wish I could get a decent job to work and take care of myself because I can't return to the station where I worked.
Meira has also been responding to claims she is responsible for publishing the sex video online.
So my life for manka jenya kaya happen. Chair abong blending onto yam babang. Mangana post abong.
I do not know how the video leaked. We both have copies of the videos on our phones. He used the pen drive to retrieve it not long after my phone got spoiled and I took it for repairs. I doubt if the repairer is responsible.
That's her side of the story. Her man, who was captured in the sex video also being flogged, Adnan, is almost losing his sight in the right eye due to the torture at the hands of a youth.
Whatever that happened to, it is destined to happen. We don't know how it could have been if it was someone else. It would have been more disastrous and terrible than this. Ever since the incident happened, one of my brothers who is also working at the social welfare came here. Then they took me to the hospital for general body screening. Then after the screening, it was just some pains and bruises that was on my body. But it's my eye. It was my eye that was affected because that one, it was kicked by someone. So when it gets to a certain level, when I go out, it becomes blur and tears begin to come out.
Like Meira, he was dragged and beaten when he was arrested by the youth en route to the Warner's Palace that day.
We are still hoping and praying that we should get well. The eye doctor or the eye specialist told me in 3 days or 4 days I should always come for a checkup. That was what he told me. Well, I can say anything, but if you see that you can help, but whatever that happens is in God's control. But if you see that you can help, you can chip in and help.
His family says they have been through so much in the last few days that would want to forget this episode of their lives in a hurry. The Social Welfare Department in the Wa municipality has taken a serious view of the developments after several days of trying without success to connect with the lady victim. I have come to meet the Wa Municipal Director of Social Welfare, Issa Umar, who has been busy the last few days.
She opened up and we talk. You know, counseling too is a process, it's not an event. You start and you have to visit them almost every day for this thing to be done. And you see, one other thing we are protecting against is, for us, our work, confidentiality is the hallmark. So we don't want a situation where they will be and like they see us coming and then people will be running around to see that these people are coming to talk to them. No. So we try to put them in a place where they will be safe and where we can have tete-a-tete with them. So initially the plan was that if where they are staying, they are not comfortable where they are staying, we could relocate them at different places where maybe if they are taking their treatment, they are getting their food normal to eat, and then we can also initiate our counseling process.
His office has taken up the matter with both victims.
They were doing something before this thing happened. And now that this thing has happened, we are in need to make sure that they free their minds out of it. They go back to the society, they go back to the communities to work. So certainly we will make sure where we have started, we'll get to the end of this matter. And then we can report back, or we can even write a report saying that when we started the process, this is how we did until the last day. The people are back into the community, they are back into the society, they are fit, they are working, they are okay.
But the residents have taken issue with TV3's coverage of the matter in what they describe as an overarching focus on the victims instead of a trigger which led to the flogging. From social to traditional media, phone calls, text messages, some of them have been issuing warnings to the team to quit the coverage and leave the community.
So many issues in the Upper West region as we speak. There are so many issues in our communities that are left unattended to. And trust me, nobody's talking about it. These are brothers in the Upper West region that are reporting for TV3s and that stuff. I want you to come out and tell us, how many good stories have you sent to the national level? I'm not saying they don't, but I said how many? Count them. We had a culture before the white man came. There was a way our chiefs and elders ruled every community before the white man came.
On local radio stations, the conversations have been ongoing. The talk about town has been about how to curb the increasing cases of sexual impropriety, a matter that's gained public attention over the last few days. There's been some tension between the palace and the police, which has arrested at least 2 sub-chiefs over the matter, even as investigations continue. But the police says it will go ahead and prosecute the matter. All eyes will be on this municipality, at least for some time to come, to discover how it all plays out and the look ahead for a people seeking to pursue morality in an archaic system which many have described as backward and regressive. Maybe, just maybe, the legally accepted Ghanaian laws will be enough in this pursuit.